I never believed in the supernatural. Up until that point, I always thought ghost stories and urban legends were just entertainment, not something real. But all that changed when I inherited an old estate from my estranged aunt. Sometimes, belief is tested by reality. The estate was located on the outskirts of a small town, far from the bustle. The house was grand but gloomy, with blackened windows that seemed to watch the outside world. As I arrived in front of the house, the cold air and strong wind felt like a whispering welcome. I forced myself to stay calm, though a sense of unease crept over me. The first day in the house was heavy. I began cleaning the dusty and disorganized rooms, rearranging the scattered items throughout the estate. That first night, I tried to sleep in the vast master bedroom with high ceilings and walls covered in old wallpaper. The darkness of the night made the place feel even more foreign. I tried to ignore the strange sounds from within the house, creaking doors, squeaking floors, and soft whispers that seemed to come from unseen corners. The darkness of the night enveloped the house, and I felt increasingly isolated. As I tried to sleep, I felt a cold sensation touch my skin, as if an invisible hand was gently embracing me. I opened my eyes and searched for the source, but there was nothing but thick darkness. The next morning, I felt even more uncomfortable. I found an odd note on the living room table, placed there for no apparent reason. The note was written in black ink, with trembling letters on the paper, "Leave before it's too late." This message disturbed me, but I tried to dismiss it as a foolish prank. However, other disturbances began to occur. Objects started moving. An antique clock suddenly appeared on the dining table when it had been on a shelf, and paintings seemed to shift slightly. Strange noises grew clear, like interrupted conversations and soft whispers piercing the night's silence. Dark shadows seemed to dance at the edge of my vision, and every time I tried to look closer, they would vanish. As I delved deeper, I discovered strange symbols drawn on the wall, symbols that appeared ancient, glowing softly in the night. I wasn't sure if they were part of the decor or something more sinister. I felt increasingly trapped in an atmosphere that was growing more terrifying. I started researching the house's history. In local archives, I found that my aunt had been an occultist. She was known to be involved in unusual rituals and was often talked about with fearful tones by townsfolk. Many believed she had engaged in dark practices that might have invited something evil into the house. The deeper I investigated the estate's history, the clearer it became that something was seriously wrong. The night sounds became more disturbing, screams that couldn't be explained and noises blending with intangible whispers. I began experiencing unsettling visions, horrific scenes of people suffering and wailing, spirits seeking release. It felt as though the house was trying to communicate with me in the most frightening way possible. I decided to call in a paranormal investigator. They arrived with specialized equipment, energy detectors, infrared cameras, and various tools to try to communicate with spirits. As soon as they entered the house, their reaction created a commotion. Objects were thrown, lights flickered, and the air turned cold as if an evil presence had just awakened. The investigator conducted a medium session, attempting to speak with the spirits in the house. The room was filled with oppressing energy, and the investigator began speaking in a language I didn't understand. The sounds coming from them were cries, moans, and whispers full of anger. One entity, stronger and more malevolent than the others, seemed to take over. It spoke through the investigator, expressing its rage and suffering. The entity revealed that it had been trapped for decades as a result of rituals performed by my aunt. The rituals had not only summoned the entity but had also bound it permanently to the house. It revealed that only by sacrificing someone could it free itself and claim a soul in return. I realized I was not only facing something evil but also a real threat to my safety. The entity sought not only liberation but also revenge. As days went by, I felt increasingly pressured and terrified. Every attempt to leave the house was thwarted by unseen forces, doors closing, windows sealing, and the atmosphere becoming increasingly oppressive. In a final attempt, I searched for a hidden room in the estate that I hadn't explored before. This room was in the basement, hidden behind a locked door. Inside, I found an ancient altar covered in dust, strange symbols, old candles, and ancient texts indicating that this was the center of all the rituals performed by my aunt. I knew the only way to free myself and end the terror was to confront the entity directly. Trembling, I began to follow the instructions from the texts, performing a ritual meant to expel the entity. Each step felt like walking towards death, with spectral visions and malevolent energy growing more intense. As I recited the final words of the ritual, the atmosphere in the house changed. The air became silent, and the terrifying noises disappeared. I felt a heavy burden lift from my shoulders, as though the tormenting entity had vanished. Exhaustion and despair overtook me, but I knew I had to leave the place as quickly as possible. After the ritual was completed, I quickly packed my belongings, trying to leave the estate filled with horrors. However, every time I tried to leave, something blocked me. Doors were shut tight, windows were sealed, and I felt trapped in a labyrinth of despair. The evil forces seemed to have taken over the house, and I couldn't find a way to escape. Eventually, I found an exit with the help of the still-present investigator. We quickly left the estate and tried to distance ourselves from the place. As I looked back at the house from a distance, its once grand appearance now seemed even more somber and abandoned. Though I managed to escape, I couldn't shake the feeling that the entity still lingered, bound by a curse that wasn't fully broken. Sometimes, at night, I still hear soft whispers cutting through the silence like the entity is trying to communicate with me from afar. I live with the knowledge that some terrors can never truly be banished, and darkness may always lurk just beyond the reach of light.